Welcome to this week's edition of Ask an MS Expert. I'm Jon Strum, and I'm the host of the Real Talk MS podcast. Each week, Real Talk MS reaches thousands of people in more than 100 countries around the world with the news that people affected by MS need to know. My wife, Jean, lived with progressive MS for 23 years, so I've had a front row seat experiencing all the ways that MS can impact a family. I'm a past member of the International Progressive MS Alliance Scientific Steering Committee. Currently, I'm a district activist leader and trustee for the National MS Society, and I chair the Society's California Government Relations Advisory Committee. The MS Society's Ask an MS Expert webcast is designed to give us a place for the MS community to connect and to connect you with MS experts who are ready to answer your questions on the topics that impact people affected by MS every day. Please feel free to post your comments and questions on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. MS navigators are online throughout today's program, answering questions and connecting you to resources. Fatigue is one of the most common symptoms of MS, affecting about 80% of the people living with multiple sclerosis. And many say it's one of their most bothersome symptoms because MS can interfere with your ability to function at home and at work. In fact, it's one of the main causes of early departure from the workforce. Today, we're talking about strategies to assess and manage fatigue with Dr. Elizabeth Gromisch, a neuropsychologist at the Mandell Center for Multiple Sclerosis in Hartford, Connecticut. Welcome, Dr. Gromisch. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, what exactly is fatigue, and what are the different kinds of fatigue that people might experience?
So the official definition that we use for fatigue is a subjective lack of physical and/or mental energy that is perceived by the individual or caregiver to interfere with usual and desired activities. So it's more than feeling tired at the end of the day. It's a drain on your energy reserves that can make it incredibly difficult to do the activities you want to or need to do. So there are different kinds of fatigue that can occur. The first is primary MS fatigue, which is the result of changes to the central nervous system. What happens is the messages that's being sent by your brain and spinal cord get disrupted, causing your body to work harder. This extra effort needed for functioning can lead you to feel more fatigued. Then the second is secondary MS fatigue, which is the result of living with MS. For instance, someone who has bladder issues may be waking up during the night to use the bathroom, resulting in poor sleep, which in turn causes fatigue. It's also important to note that people with MS can have fatigue caused by other medical conditions. It's important to bring up your fatigue issues to your healthcare provider.
I know that MS fatigue is also called lassitude. How is that different from other kinds of fatigue?
So there are several features that make MS fatigue different from non-MS fatigue. So MS fatigue is more likely to be severe and interfere in your daily activities. It can occur daily, even in the morning after a good night's sleep. It can start suddenly and worsen as the day goes on. And in addition, MS fatigue can get worse in hot and humid conditions.
Why is fatigue so common in MS?
So that's likely a combination of several different factors. So the first is the physiological changes caused by MS. So because the body has to work harder to function due to those disruptions in the central nervous system, it can cause a buildup of MS fatigue. And a lot of the symptoms of MS can contribute to fatigue or worsen it. So I mentioned the bladder issues, but there can be things like sleep problems like insomnia, pain, depression, increased cognitive demands, and muscle weakness, which can all contribute to fatigue.
So, how can someone tell if the fatigue they're experiencing is related to their MS or something else?
So looking for those signs of MS fatigue is a good first step. So for instance, if you're noticing that your fatigue is getting worse as it's hot or worsens as the day goes on, that could be a good indicator that it's related to your MS. It's also really important to talk to your healthcare provider. So as part of your workup, we're going to be taking a look at your medical history, your lab work, and your lifestyle to see what may be contributing. It's a possibility it could be related to multiple factors that's causing your fatigue. And so we want to take a look at all that together so we can come up with a plan of how to best manage it.
Well, I just heard you mention that it could actually be multiple factors that cause fatigue. What are some of those things that might cause or contribute to fatigue?
So sleep problems are one factor. So if we're not getting a good night's sleep, it can cause or make fatigue worse. So while naps can be really helpful, and a lot of people with MS use naps to deal with their fatigue, we do need to be careful how late in the day we take them. So if we nap too late in the evening, it can affect our ability to fall asleep at night, resulting in a cycle of poor sleep and increased fatigue. So physical activity is another factor, as deconditioning can make fatigue worse. While exercise is a great strategy, just like naps, we have to be careful how late in the day we do it, as it can interrupt our sleep. Because we can think of physical activity as a stimulant, just like caffeine. Our emotional state, like stress, depression, anxiety, can cause or contribute to fatigue as well. And other factors include overdoing certain activities and draining our energy reserves, poor diet and dehydration, certain medications, and other medical conditions like having an infection.
You know, we just heard from Kira, who lives with MS. Kira told us she's 40 years old, has 2 young children, a wife, and a dog. And Kira says she's feeling more exhausted than ever before from just getting through her daily activities. She says she gets tired so quickly and can't seem to bounce back from the way that she used to. So this sounds like something that a lot of people might experience, whether they have MS or not. If Kira was your patient, how would you begin to assess her fatigue? And while we're talking about it, are there any specific tests that you might use?
So in addition to getting Kira's medical history and looking at her recent lab work, I want to get a better sense of what her daily life is. It sounds like she has a lot going on in her life. So what kind of responsibilities does she have during the day? And how does she balance work and rest? I also want to know what her stress levels have been like, what her mood is like, and how her sleep has been. Because fatigue is so multifactorial, we really want to get a good picture of who Kira is as a person and try to pinpoint the areas in her life that may be making her fatigue worse. So that way we can come up with a treatment plan that works for her. In terms of fatigue assessment, we rely a lot on self-report measures to see how severe the fatigue is and how it's impacting individuals' daily lives. So I tend to use the fatigue severity scale, which looks at how severe the fatigue is in different aspects of life, and the modified fatigue impact scale, which allows me to take a closer look at where in their life their fatigue is having the biggest impact. You know, is it having impact on their emotional state, their cognition, their physical abilities? And as a neuropsychologist, I'm also going to be using measures that assess for depression, sleep problems, and cognitive difficulties to get a sense of other areas where Kira may be struggling, which also can impact her fatigue.
Since you mentioned some of that assessment is really dependent on self-report, is it useful for someone to track their fatigue? And if it is there a good tool for doing that?
Absolutely. I think fatigue tracking is one of the best tools that we can use for fatigue management. So it allows us to gain insights into times that fatigue is better or worse, which can help us to plan out our day. It can also let us know when we need to schedule breaks so we don't overdo it. And scheduling that break time is really important. Over time, tracking our fatigue can also help us identify which fatigue management strategies are working best for us. So in terms of specific tools you can use, you can go very simple as, writing it down in a notebook, using a scale of 0 to 10, or you can use a notepad on your phone. And there are different apps out there that are focused on fatigue that let you track your fatigue. And I should note that a fatigue tracking diary is one of the features of the fatigue self-management program we're developing as part of our National MS Society funded study.
We're going to circle back to that in just a couple of minutes. You know, fatigue is one of the invisible symptoms of MS, and because other people can't see it, it can be difficult trying to explain fatigue to someone who might interpret it the wrong way or just not get it at all. What's a good way for someone to explain fatigue to a person who doesn't have MS?
I'm a big fan of using analogies. A great one is that we all have batteries. So for many people without MS, their batteries are fully charged or nearly full, so they don't have any problems having enough energy to do their daily activities. However, MS can drain that battery and make it a lot harder to do things. It may feel like your battery is never quite full or drains much more quickly, so you need more time to recharge before you can tackle an activity. It doesn't mean that you don't want to do something, you just don't have enough charge left to do it.
Chantel told us that after being diagnosed with MS, she experienced anxiety and depression, which interfered with her daily functioning more than her physical symptoms did. These mood changes also caused her to experience more fatigue. And I think you've already started to answer my question. How do emotional changes like anxiety and depression affect fatigue?
So not only are emotional changes common in MS, but they can definitely cause or make fatigue worse. And like I mentioned earlier, fatigue is often a symptom of depression. So when we're feeling anxious or depressed, it can affect how we think about things, and we can fall into unhelpful thinking patterns. So for instance, we might focus on the negative in our lives and completely omit the positives, or think about the worst case scenario. And these thought processes can make our fatigue and our mood worse, resulting in a negative cycle. So working with a mental health professional can be helpful in these situations. We can learn how to challenge these negative thinking patterns, replace them with more positive thinking patterns, and really change our minds and change our behaviors.
Hazel says her fatigue gets really bad in the summer when the weather is hot and muggy. Sometimes she says she can't even go outside. How does heat impact fatigue? And what are some solutions to stay cool in hot weather?
So one of the features that make MS fatigue different from other types of fatigue is that heat and humidity can make the fatigue worse. So if you notice this about your fatigue, keeping yourself cool can be helpful. So this can include keeping your room at a cooler temperature, using a cooling pack, having a cold drink nearby, and dressing in lighter clothing. If you have to go outside, try limiting your time so you don't overheat.
Jack wrote to us and asked if his disease-modifying therapy could be causing his fatigue. Is it possible for a DMT or other medications that are used to treat MS symptoms to actually cause fatigue?
Yes, so certain medications may have side effects that can contribute to your MS fatigue. It's important to talk to your healthcare provider about this so they can review all your medications that you're currently taking and decide if there needs to be any changes, such as switching when you take your medication or putting you on a new one. Be also sure to tell your provider if you're taking any over-the-counter medication or any supplements, because they may be interacting with your medications. But one thing that's really important to note is even if you suspect that your DMT or other medication is causing your fatigue, never stop taking a medication before talking to your provider.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how to manage or even reduce MS fatigue. What are some strategies that can be used to manage fatigue?
So there's a lot of different strategies out there, and the key is finding the ones that work for you. I like to describe it as building your MS toolbox. So finding the different ones that work, because some days, some strategies may work better than others. So in addition to the fatigue tracking we talked about earlier, activity planning can be really helpful. So this involves making a plan for your activities to keep you from overburdening yourself and draining your battery. So this can involve spreading out energy taxing activities and putting in time for rest. And also with activity planning, it can help you schedule time to do enjoyable activities that you may be putting off because of your fatigue. Another area that's really helpful is energy conservation strategies. So these involve making changes to your environment so that you're not reaching as much or standing up, which can drain your energy, using tools like using an electric toothbrush rather than a manual toothbrush if you notice that you're getting fatigued while brushing your teeth, breaking down tasks into smaller steps. So for instance, if you notice that doing the housework is a really fatiguing activity, breaking them into smaller tasks that you can do and spread out throughout the day, and proper body positioning. So using good posture when we're standing, sitting, and bending. And these can all be very helpful. And then going on my side as being a psychologist, cognitive behavioral strategies. So these involve things like thought challenging exercises, sleep monitoring, and relaxation techniques.
I want to get back to that in just a moment. But first, I want to ask you whether there are medications that can be used to manage fatigue, and are there non-pharmacological treatments that have been successful for people?
So there are some off-label medications, and what that means is it's not FDA approved specifically for MS fatigue, and they're often used for other conditions, but sometimes they have been found to be helpful. And these include stimulants like methylphenidate, antivirals as amantadine, and wakeful promoting agents like modafinil. So it is important to note that there's not a lot of evidence for their effectiveness in MS. However, there's a lot of promising evidence for the benefits of non-pharmacological treatments for MS fatigue. So those are things like the energy conservation strategies, cognitive behavioral therapies, and physical activity programs.
Now, you mentioned relaxation techniques a moment ago, and I saw that we had a question about that exact topic. Beth says her doctor told her to try relaxation techniques. And Beth wants to know, if fatigue already makes her feel tired, how can relaxation techniques be helpful?
That's a great question, because it sounds like they're the complete opposites. If you're already feeling really fatigued, why are you going to do a relaxation technique and potentially make yourself more tired? But the reason we'll suggest relaxation techniques is because stress and sleep problems are both factors that can cause or contribute to fatigue, and relaxation techniques are really helpful for both of those. So for example, for sleep, if you find that when you're trying to fall asleep at night, your mind just keeps going, you can't shut it off. That's something we call rumination. So doing relaxation techniques can help you clear your mind and kind of get yourself into a better mindset before you fall asleep. And with stress, throughout the day, if you're finding yourself getting really stressed, that can make your fatigue worse. So taking a few minutes to do relaxation techniques can be a very helpful strategy to get those stress levels down.
Ronald is wondering if there are certain foods or beverages he should be eating or drinking that might help with fatigue.
So if we don't drink enough water or rely too much on caffeine and sugary drinks, we can find ourselves becoming more fatigued. On the other hand, choosing healthy options like protein-rich foods and complex carbohydrates may help us feel more energized. So while there's not a specific MS diet, there has been growing research on certain diets and their impact on MS symptoms, including fatigue. There was a recent press release from the National MS Society on a study they funded from the University of Iowa that found promising results with two diets, the SWANK diet and the Wahls elimination diet. So the SWANK diet is a low saturated fat diet, which involves limiting your intake of saturated and unsaturated fats and eliminating certain foods, such as processed foods that contain saturated fats and red meat for the first year. The Wahls elimination diet is a modified Paleolithic diet that excludes dairy, legumes, and grains, as well as highly processed foods. And both of these diets emphasize the consumption of fruits and vegetables, which is good for us to get anyway. But one thing I want to point out is while there's promising evidence with this diet, before starting any new diet, talk to your healthcare provider, because they may choose to refer you to a registered dietitian who can help you navigate these different diets and making sure that you get the proper nutrients.
Which healthcare professionals should someone be working with to help manage fatigue?
So because fatigue is so multifactorial, a multidisciplinary team approach is the best. So I'm biased. I work in a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary MS center, so I really believe in having a whole team approach. So in addition to working with your primary MS healthcare provider, an occupational therapist is great to have on your team because they can help you with energy conservation strategies and environmental modifications, whether that's at home or in the workplace. A physical therapist who can help you design a physical activity program to help prevent deconditioning, and then a psychologist who can provide cognitive behavioral therapy.
Because fatigue is such a common MS symptom, and because it's difficult to treat, it's an important target for research studies. So first, let me congratulate you on receiving the National MS Society's Harry Weaver Scholar Award, which helps support investigators starting their careers as independent researchers. And I'm hoping you won't mind telling us a little about the research that you're leading on MS fatigue.
Thank you. We're really excited about this opportunity. So our project is designing a fatigue self-management program called Managing My MS My Way, which is teaching persons with MS different strategies for managing their fatigue through a mobile application. So we're using the concept of self-management. This puts the focus on the person with MS. They're the expert in MS, and they know what works for their MS and doesn't work. And they're also the ones who are managing their MS on a daily basis. So the focus of the program is helping them find different fatigue management strategies that work for them and fit in their lifestyle. So some of them may work, some of them may not work, but again, building that MS fatigue toolbox. So in this program, we're combining cognitive behavioral therapy and energy conservation strategies and putting them on a platform that persons with MS can access anytime they need it. So they can do it on their phone, their tablet, or computer. So one thing that makes our project unique is it's being designed by people with MS for people with MS. So even the reason we're doing it as a fatigue program over the internet is based off feedback from our patients. So we've recently met with people with MS to discuss the different strategies to include in the program. And right now we're building the application. So the next steps will be testing the application with people with MS to make sure that it's easy to use. And after we test it in a clinical trial and see if it's an effective treatment, we hope to make it available eventually for all persons with MS to use.
Well, that's encouraging news. You shared some really helpful insights about managing and maybe even reducing MS fatigue. What would you say are the top 3 takeaways that you'd like our audience to remember?
So first, there's a lot of different MS and non-MS related factors that can contribute or cause fatigue. So if you are experiencing fatigue, talk to your healthcare provider. They can do a comprehensive evaluation to determine the factors that may be contributing, including lifestyle factors, which can help the two of you determine a treatment plan that's going to work for you. Second, tracking your fatigue can help you identify times where your fatigue levels are higher or lower. You can use that information to plan out your activities, such as scheduling more energy taxing activities when your battery has a greater charge. Just remember to schedule those breaks for yourself so you don't overdo it. And last, we've talked about a lot of different strategies, and it can seem a little bit overwhelming, but the key is small changes can make a big difference. So that can be breaking bigger tasks into smaller ones to make them more manageable. Before going to bed, try turning off your electronics and taking some deep breaths to get you in a good mindset before you go to bed, and giving yourself time to have a break and recharge so you feel like your battery's not getting drained.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us, Dr. Gromisch. I think we have time for one more question. We heard from Donna, who says that even after limited exercise, she becomes very fatigued. And she wants to know whether she's really helping herself by exercising or just burning the only energy she might have for the day.
So energy is important for managing fatigue, especially because deconditioning can result in fatigue. So because Donna's noticing that she's getting burnt out, she may consider talking to a physical therapist to help her create an exercise program that's going to work for her. Also, if she's tracking her fatigue levels, that can help her find a time of day where she has more energy to engage in physical activity.
Well, thanks to everyone who submitted some great questions today. And thank you for being with us today, Dr. Gromisch.
Thank you.
Before we close, I want to remind you that the National MS Society's MS Navigator team is your best partner when it comes to connecting you to the best information and resources on living with MS. You can reach an MS Navigator by phone, email, or through the Society's website by chat. For information and resources on MS, please visit the Society's website. You'll find research updates and news, information on connection programs like self-help groups and MS Friends, ways for you to get involved, and upcoming events that are taking place near you. Remember, you can connect with the National MS Society and others affected by MS on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And I hope you'll join me every week on the Real Talk MS podcast, where I continue the conversation that we start here. You'll find Real Talk MS at realtalkms.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. I'd like to thank Dr. Gromisch for joining us today. Please remember that a recording of this webinar is going to be available at the Society's website at nationalmssociety.org/MSExpert, as well as on Facebook and YouTube. I hope you'll join us at this same time for next week's edition of Ask an MS Expert. You can always find our upcoming program topics on the National MS Society's website. And now I have a favor to ask each of you. Getting your feedback on today's program is important. So you'll see a survey pop up in a moment when we close out the webinar. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, you'll see a link to the survey pinned to the comments section. And on YouTube, you'll find that link in the program description. Completing the survey makes a real difference. The information you provide helps us continuously improve, and it helps shape future programs. The survey takes just 1 minute, so I hope you'll take a minute to fill it out. On behalf of Dr. Elizabeth Gromisch and the National MS Society, I want to thank you once again for joining us. Please stay safe and make healthy choices.